tell me about your experience with anxiety. What is your past experience with anxiety and what is your experience today with it?
I've experienced a lot of anxiety. I know it's a buzzword. It's very vague, isn't it?
Yeah.
We all have anxiety. We all have trauma. We all have these things. I've experienced anxiety to the point of clinical diagnosis. So I've experienced panic disorder, agoraphobia. See how I changed the word agoraphobia to agoraphobia there, being considerate of my transatlantic cousins.
Oh, I was going to say, did you say that in American just for me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
OCD, intrusive thoughts. Basically, if we were playing anxiety diagnosis bingo, I would be winning. And I've experienced all the wonderful sensations that come with it. The thoughts, all the scary what-ifs, the catastrophes, the sensations and physical symptoms like derealization, dissociation, panic, feeling sick, wanting to throw up, perspiration, muscle tension, you name it, there's hundreds of them. And just the feelings, doom, dread, all that stuff. I suffered really badly with it. I did a lot of years of trial and error to overcome it. Finally found the right way to do it and dedicated my life to helping others and educating other people about it as well. And that's why I became a psychotherapist and went down that way.
And what would you say is the right way for you, at least, to handle anxiety?
My way, I'm joking. The right way with anxiety is learning about it, psychoeducation. If you don't know what's happening, then you have no chance. You don't know what you're working with. The first thing I do when I talk about anxiety is split it into two. You've got conventional anxiety, which is, I'm worried about my job. I'm worried about my relationship. I'm worried about money. I'm worried about insert something external. And then the other side of it is internal ruminative disordered anxiety. And this is the stuff that people don't really talk about. So this is panic attacks, obsessing, intrusive thoughts about stuff you don't like and it weirds you out. Worrying about symptoms, panicking about panic, fearing fear, avoiding things because you're afraid of fear, misinterpreting fear and believing what-if thoughts. That's the inward disordered anxiety. So immediately for me, it was nice to hear that kind of anxiety existed, because when I was freaking out, having a panic attack after panic attack, thinking I was losing my mind, just that distinction was super helpful. Like, oh, other people struggle from this. And then that started the journey to recovery.
Yeah, I love that you said internalized ruminative anxiety. And I think there's two sides of the anxiety fence, right? There are people on one side who say, oh, I don't have anxiety. They think it's something really big and scary. They might have the more conventional anxiety. You know, I'm just stressed about my job. And then the other people on the other side of the fence that have the deeper anxiety, they think they're insane. And they look at the people with conventional anxiety that are just worried about their job. And they say, no, that's anxiety. It's just everyday stuff. I'm crazy. And so I think that's just something I've made up. But just from talking to people, I often talk to people who are trying to diagnose themselves or figure out how they feel. And I often hear that one thing is anxiety and one thing isn't. And it's really both, but it's just a different spectrum, right?
Absolutely. I annoy a lot of therapists because I like the word disorder. Now, I've been burned at the stake for propagating the medicalization of mental health because I like the word disorder. But no, I love it for its literal meaning, because all of that, what you described, is anxiety. No, everyone's anxiety is subjective to them. We don't negate people's suffering. But for me, it's the distinction between, is it cyclical or is it temporary? Now, for people who kind of worry about the conventional stuff, that is anxiety. You get worriers. You know, I've got my cousins are worriers. They're constantly worrying about, oh, what if that happens? What if my boss doesn't like me? What if that happens? What if I'm ill? What if I do this? What if? Just constant external different what ifs, changing it up a little bit. And then you've got the disorder anxiety. So this is our anxious response, but it's just kicking off when we don't want it to. We all get anxiety before dates and job interviews and medical appointments and things like that. That's normal. That's okay. It's still anxiety, but it's like we're not questioning why we're anxious. But the disordered anxiety is when we're like, wake up with doom and we're like, why am I anxious? I'm lying in bed. Like, why is the world suddenly look weird? Why do I feel like I'm in the Matrix? Why is everything so strange? Why am I having weird thoughts when I'm out with my friends? That's the internal disordered anxiety. It's still anxiety. It's the same response, but it's our interpretation of it is different. And the only thing that separates it is the fear of fear. Before a job interview, we're not worried about why we're worrying. We understand it. Before a first date, we know why we're anxious. It makes sense. But when it doesn't make sense, that's when you start to get on the rumination roller coaster and struggle with disordered anxiety.
We'll continue the interview on the flip side of a quick message from our sponsors.
Sir, we got your test results back, and
give it to me straight, Doc.
You have to listen to the podcast Ridiculous News.
Ridiculous News? The podcast? Ridiculous News?
It's a podcast hosted by Bill Worley and Mark Kendall. Ridiculous News.
Those two comedians based out of Atlanta, Georgia?
Oh, so you've heard of them. You know, I always knew you were my favorite patient.
Well, you're the best doctor I've ever had, and yeah, they're hilarious. I love their videos. Bill's actually my cousin. They talk about the news, but not like in a depressing way, you know what I mean? Like they did an episode about April Fools.
Great, you get it. So you need to listen to it.
Well, where do I find it?
You get it wherever you find podcasts.
Oh, like in a cereal box?
Well, no, I mean, that's not where you find a podcast.
Oh, so like in the middle of a tree?
No. Do you know what a podcast is?
Yeah, it's like a shoebox size.
No, not at all. It's something that you listen to.
Huh.
Listen to Ridiculous News on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Oh, the produce aisle.
Absolutely not.
Introducing #Matter, a brand new 8-episode scripted podcast.
Unit 510 Nora, we have a 999 shooting in progress. Officers down.
Let me explain something to you about Gerald Hayes. He's one of those dudes that has that switch, you know what I'm saying? And by the time there was gunfire, that switch was turned all the way up.
From Shondaland Audio in partnership with iHeartRadio, I'm author and journalist Kate Bell, and this is #Matter. Listen to #Matter on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Introducing #Matter, a brand new 8-episode scripted podcast.
911 emergency response.
Yeah, I need an ambulance. We at Jason's 42 Sports Bar and Grill.
A little over 12 months ago, an 18-year-old African-American young man named Niles Hayes was driving a family friend's luxury vehicle when he was stopped for a routine traffic violation. Things escalate quickly.
Unit 510 Nora, we have a 999 shooting in progress. Officers down.
Within hours of the police stop, footage of the entire altercation gets posted online, and it goes viral.
I'm Colleen Sanders, and we're here live from the Los Angeles Valley. Outside air on
see how they do us?
This case presented a lot of challenges.
You got the whole PD outside my building, ready to light the entire block.
Any number of outcomes could have happened and different choices were made.
I guess what I am struggling with.
You struggle with it because you live in a different reality than we do.
Listen to #Matter on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Let me ask you this. So somebody wakes up, they're in bed. Why am I feeling weird? They're worried about why they feel anxiety, even if they don't call it anxiety. So now we're getting into the rumination. So there is a difference, obviously, between a slight curiosity. Oh, I feel a little weird, but I know nothing's wrong because I'm in bed. Let me ... investigate that. We'll get to that in a minute. And then there's, I feel weird. Blah, blah, fill in the blank. I must be dying. The world must be ending. I'm insane. There's a ghost in my bedroom. I don't know, whatever. So there is a difference because, like you said, okay, if you don't find out what is going on, you cannot get to solving your anxiety symptoms. But now I like to drill down into the nitty gritty because I feel like, I don't know, it interests me. So I know it interests someone out there. So now we've got this person laying in bed. What is the difference between that kind of curious mind that knows, you know what, I think I need to talk to someone about this because I feel weird and I shouldn't. And the rumination. Can you show us or tell us what each one is? Because I think a lot of people think, well, I'm ruminating. They wouldn't call it ruminating. They'd think, no, I'm trying to figure it out, you know?
Trying to fix it, trying to find the miracle thought. Great question. And there's a simple answer. People who ruminate believe that worrying will alleviate the worry. They don't feel like they can tolerate the feeling of uncertainty. The person with intrigue can tolerate the uncertainty. The person who believes they can't tolerate it will try to ruminate as a compulsion. And you're right. Some people wake up and feel like shit. Oh, I feel like shit. Well, I know it's okay to feel like shit in the morning. I'll be all right in an hour. Sorry, am I allowed? I
You're
swore.
Totally allowed to swear. Yes, I encourage it.
So, and then, intrigue. Like, you get these yogis and these mindfulness people. They're like, treat the anxiety like, invite it. Intrigue. It's like, nah, man. Like, if you've got a disordered anxiety, ignore it, man. Don't intrigue it with it. Don't invite it in. Just be like, I've got to erase the secondary fear here. So if you're a ruminator, get out of bed, put your shoes on and stop ruminating. If you don't fear fear and you just I must have slept bad last night. Oh, okay, well, I'll carry on my day. Then you don't need to do anything. It's fine. But if you're in the midst of that cycle, questions I get all the time, morning anxiety. Why do I feel doom when I wake up? Well, we all feel cortisol in the morning. That's what wakes us up. When you wake up, the body goes, boom, have a load of cortisol, which is a fear chemical, actually. But because we're misinterpreting anxiety, or if we're highly anxious, we start to then see that doom feeling as an invitation to ruminate, to listen to every thought the brain throws at us. I mean, we get 7,500 to 8,000 different thoughts a day. And yet why are we picking the same 5 crap thoughts every time? Like, what if that happens? What if that happens? For years, even for some people. And so it's about, stepping off the rumination roller coaster, the hamster wheel of rumination. Keep your attention external, and that's a lot of what I do. What doesn't help, though, is sensationalized narratives, particularly when you see therapy on TV and stuff like that, where it's about getting to the root cause, like I call it inception thinking. If I sit here and go through my memories and realize, it's because my dad didn't come to my soccer game, that's why I'm having panic attack. That doesn't exist in anxiety disorders. That it's just a fear and a misinterpretation. Oh, I went off on a little rant then. Sorry, I often do that.
I love it. I wrote down 3 things that I want to go back to. One of them is making fun of the kind of yogi, hey man, just invite the thoughts in. Now, first of all, that is the most British, do we say British? Do we say UK thing I've ever heard?
British, yeah. That's
you
cool.
Making fun. I'm from Boston originally, and then my family is from Manchester, UK.
That's where I live.
I was going to ask if you're in Manchester, and I know this information is available online, but I really didn't know what part you were in.
To anyone listening at home, Manchester is like London, but not shit. It's really good.
Yeah. Well, and to anyone listening that's in Boston, Manchester is like Lowell. So anyway, my I don't know any of these people, but my great-great-grandfather was in Manchester, moved to Boston, whatever. So I feel this kinship with my British people because Boston, we have a low tolerance for bullshit. And I think we can sniff it out pretty well. I think it's what might stop a lot of our kinds of people from getting help in the first place because we're so against bullshit that we don't want anyone to get into our minds, But going back to these people, hey man, just invite the thoughts. I was recently proselytizing that kind of thing, even at the beginning of this podcast. When I first started it, I was saying that, let's have fun with our anxiety. At this point, I think of my anxiety as this annoying friend who sits in the front seat of my car and they weigh in on things I should think about, but I just ignore them. Or, they're the idiot at work that pitches ideas and you go, and you never do it, but you have to keep them there because they're the boss's son, And I think that's all cute and fine. I'm not putting myself down, but I have to be very careful because I got there decades after working on myself. You can't tell someone that hasn't started working yet to just take their ruminations that are, as you said, pretty, disordered and think of them as a friend. I mean, we're not there yet, right?
Yeah, the anthropomorphification, there's a word, anthropomorphizing your anxiety. Like, there's books out there, like, where they turn it into animals or friends or whatever. and you know what? Anxiety is there. It's there to save your life. And that's why I love psychoeducation. And this is really important. As we know, anxiety is a threat response. I love calling it a threat response because it will engage when there's any threat. Not just lions and tigers wanting to rip your throat out, but threat to social stance, threat to esteem, threat to relationship, threat to all those things. That's what anxiety is there for, and it's great. But because it's a mechanism in our brain that has not evolved since our ancestors, it doesn't understand the accumulation of subjective stress. So it doesn't understand why you're stressed out about social media. It doesn't understand why your quarterly report isn't in on time. It doesn't understand pandemics. It doesn't understand all these things. And so all it does is that it notices that you're getting super stressed. And I always use the analogy of the jug. We all have, it's a metaphor. Look at me, I'm super clever. I'm using metaphor. We all have a jug and all our stress goes into it. And that's fine. But we all have a capacity for stress. And this is why people develop anxiety disorders at times in their life where things are super stressful. Not just negative stress either, positive stress. Oh, I just got married, or I just moved house, I just got a promotion, I've just had a kid, or just whatever. Stress will add to that jug. And when it overflows, that's when that mechanism in your brain doesn't understand that. So just to be sure, it's trying to save you. It's going, you know what? It's better to be wrong and alive than lackadaisical and dead. Just like for our ancestors. Our ancestors walking through the jungle, walking across the desert, we all have, I call it the inner meerkat. It's the same mechanism that a meerkat has. It's that meerkats survive because they can't fight lions, but they can see them coming from a mile away. So they can plan around it. And that's how humans became the dominant species. You can't fight or even run away from lions. People talk about fight or flight. It's like, well, yeah, but both would suck when you're fighting wolves.
Whenever I've been in fight or flight, I often wonder what the fight would look like, And, I guess right now it looks like people punching flight attendants.
No, but there's another mechanism of anxiety that isn't taught often, and that is our meerkat mode. Because we became the dominant species, the dominant predators, because we can go, here, lads, have you seen that over there? It's a pride of lions. Sharpen your spoons. We'll sneak up on them. Yeah. And we'll have a Lion King themed barbecue later. Yeah. That mechanism, that anxiety, is one of the most powerful things that have made us the predators of the world. But it sucks when you're sat in the office just trying to type something on a computer. Why the hell is that going off right now?
There's no shark.
There's no shark. There's nothing. And so recovery is turning off that threat response. But each time you ruminate or do a safety behavior or Google your symptoms, you're just thanking it. So next time it's just going to keep going on and on and on. And that's what I'm really passionate about, kind of discussing and teaching people.
I really like the way you just framed it. And so thank you. You've helped me have more fun with it in that it's not this, oh no, we haven't evolved past this. And, we used to do it when we didn't have toilets and had to run from tigers. It sounded so like, well, geez, what's wrong with us? Why didn't we evolve? And you're framing it in a way that's like, no, we're not supposed to become tigers. We did evolve, but it's just that instinct is still there because it's survival. But we are arguably so, we're the smartest species. But in that sense, we have different senses than other species. We can see them coming. That's our protection. Like, we're all nerds, in the animal kingdom. Like, we're the smart ones with, our pencils and calculators. And the jocks are out there, throwing things and trying to, bite us. But we might win because we calculated how long it's going to take them to get to us.
Yeah, people misinterpret it as a dysfunctional part of the brain. And listen, I'm not going to, as someone who suffered a lot with anxiety, I sympathize and empathize with that belief. What does help, though, is realizing, and again, that word disorder, it's just going off when I don't need it to at the moment, and it is always possible to get it off. A lot of people, I hear a lot of things like, what's the cure? Like, no. You don't cure anxiety. We all have anxiety. It's super. Again, it's we're the nerds of we need it.
Yeah.
Honestly, we'd be extinct without it. It's there. But some people's fires off more readily than others. What you've got, and I always bring people's attention back to the stress jug. So first of all, a lot of people's stress jugs are filled up by the fear of fear itself. What if I panic when in situations where I don't like it? What if I have an intrusive thought around children? What if I freak out when I'm driving on the freeway? What if I, embarrass myself in front of my work colleagues? Now, the fear of fear and the fear of anxiety itself will fill up the jug. And that when people come and sit in my practice, that's the first thing that we look at. Then we look at, well, what else is in the jug? How the hell did you get here? And that's when there's a place for exploring narratives. Now, everyone knows that anyone who knows my work, I'm grumpy as hell, because there's this misbelief and a horrible narrative at the moment going around in the popular sphere about you can overcome all anxiety and mental health issues by identifying trauma. It's a popular term. It actually waters down the severity of trauma for people who actually experience PTSD. Everything's a trauma. I spilt my milk on the side. Oh, it's traumatic. Oh, no, everything's trauma. I heard something the other day. What was it? My dad sometimes not picking me up at the weekend, which he didn't, was traumatizing. That's trauma for me. I mean, it's not. It's just upsetting. It's not traumatizing.
Yeah.
If he left me in the jungle, then yeah, that's traumatizing. But he didn't. But anyway, yeah. So what I do is unpick what's in the jug, and yeah, you will find traumatic events in there. You'll find sadness, grief. Maybe you're a survivor of abuse. Maybe you've learned that your esteem is valued on your output rather than who you are. Maybe there's just stuff, anger in there, breakups, divorce, whatever. And you slowly pour out the jug. And that's, for me, how you get on top of anxiety. It's how I got on top of mine. It's how people get on top of theirs. And it's my opinion, which is always fact on the issue.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's the name of this episode, My Opinion is Fact, with Joshua Fletcher.
That's on my gravestone.
Anxiety Bites will be right back after a quick little message from one of our sponsors.
Hey, it's Alec Baldwin. On this season of Here's the Thing, I speak with more actors, musicians, writers, policymakers, and so many other fascinating people, like comedian Tim Dillon.
I couldn't tell you my congressman. I know every maitre d' of every restaurant. I know who's working Craig's. I know who's working, all the places I want to go. Who's at El Pastel?
When I'm in town, you come with me. We're going to go to Craig's.
Host of The Talk, Amanda Klutz.
I did Broadway for 17 years. When you do that, it kind of prepares you for anything in life.
And the multi-talented musician and actor, Steven Van Zandt.
When it comes to performing, that's just like a vacation for me. Whether it's acting or whether it's being a rock star on stage, that stuff is just nothing but fun for me. The real work is looking at a blank piece of paper and creating something from it,
Listen to Here's the Thing on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, I'm Stacey Wilson Hunt, your host for Inventing Anna, the official podcast. From Shonda Rhimes and the creators at Shondaland, Inventing Anna tells the story of a young woman who charmed her way into the pocketbooks of New York's elite.
Was she gonna take off with that $20 million from the banks, or was she gonna pour it into this foundation?
People look at Anna and see what they want to see.
On this podcast, you'll get VIP access to the real people who inspired the television series and to the actors and creatives like showrunner Shonda Rhimes who brought them to life.
We were working on the show while the trial was going on. I remember doing a dramatic reading of Todd's opening statement for the writer's room.
Who is the fake heiress, Anna Delvey? Join us as we unravel the stories behind the story.
Everything's true until it's not, basically, in Anna's world.
Listen to Inventing Anna, the official podcast, every Wednesday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Elliot Kalin, comedian, author, history buff, and host of the Who Was podcast, a history quiz show based on the best-selling book series where kid contestants go toe-to-toe for a chance to win fantastic prizes. My co-host B,
that's me,
and I ask the tough questions like,
would Mozart like TikTok?
But that's not all we talk about on the show.
Usually my signature look is bedhead.
All right, I like it.
I do gymnastics, and I have 2 scars.
What? Are the scars from gymnastics, or were you, like, wrestling dinosaurs and things like that?
I really like history. Even my mom says I know more than most adults do.
We've got fun games, silly songs.
And don't forget to mention our amazing guests.
It's me, Frida Kahlo. Bonjour, c'est moi, Marie Curie.
Hello, everyone. It's me, Aretha Franklin.
Listen to the Who Was podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It's the Who Was podcast, because it's time to play the Who Was podcast. Who Was?
You mentioned that other people in your field don't like that you use the word disorder. And I don't know if you need the opinion of a comedian / podcaster on your side, but not until I started using the word disordered for myself did I start to go warp speed, solving a lot of the symptoms and problems of my anxiety. I'd say in the last 5 years, I adopted saying, oh, that's a disordered thought, or that's a disordered response. And why don't people like that? I mean, doesn't that anxiety disorder, it's disordered? What's the problem?
This, at face value, and there's a lot of, I can see why people get angry at it, because there is a lot of medicalization of mental health. I'm with those people. But also in this world of partisan politics, partisan beliefs, partisan debates, actually, I like to just not take a side and see things for what things are. Anxiety disorders, in my opinion, do exist. I've experienced 5 of them simultaneously. Also, the pro argument for having a disorder is that you know what type of anxiety it is. Someone comes to me and says, I've got an anxiety disorder. I'm like, bam, I know what you're doing. You wake up, you check how you feel. You're probably constantly obsessing how you feel. You probably, every time you're not 100% happy, you're obsessing about how you feel, how you can fix that. You probably have panic attacks, anxiety attacks. You probably ruminate. Yeah. Well, then I know you've got anxiety disorder. But if someone comes into my practice and says, oh, I've got anxiety, then I need to know why. Maybe they're really anxious. Maybe they're in an abusive relationship and they don't know it. Maybe they're super stressed and actually they've got legit anxiety. Maybe they're being harassed and bullied, and that causes anxiety. So it's always cool to set up that distinction. Maybe, and so I always like separating things like that. But yeah, I just think the word disorder has developed a bad rap for things like borderline personality disorder. That's a very contentious issue. I wouldn't necessarily ever use BPD as a diagnosis or subscribe to it. Some people really like it. It's their relationship with the label. And some people categorically reject it. What doesn't help in the world of therapy and psychotherapy and psychological intervention is that there is partisan arguments in there. There's tribal wars within therapy. So how do you expect, like the amount of people that come to me to help with anxiety and they've spent years trying to pinpoint trauma, and yes, they've been traumatized. I've been traumatized. God, I've been sexually abused. I've gone through death. I've had my brother die in my arms. I've been beaten the shit out of all that. I have been traumatized. I know what trauma is. And that's it for anyone wants to do that. But I don't really have PTSD. People with PTSD relive it, and the stuff. And you've already done an episode on that and stuff like that. It's really quite severe. But yeah, it's the kind of thing. It's like, separating it and seeing what it is, I think your relationship with the word.
Yeah.
But obviously we live in a climate now where words are taken out of proportion, semantics are slaughtered. It's scary. It's so
It is
scary.
because people want, like you said, everything is partisan. And so a lot of times people don't want you to take their word away from them, and you're trying to take it away from them so you can help them.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, there's I'm writing a book on it now, actually. It's called Shit Your Therapist is Thinking. It's got a lot of interest for it.
Wow. Love it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's not out for like another year, but